smooth transitions, dynamic text morphing, layered animations, all built with just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. No libraries, no frameworks. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to build this from scratch. So if your websites still feel static and boring, this is about to change everything. All right? We want something that actually feels premium, like those high-end landing pages. Open your VS Code and create your HTML file named cafe.html. Press enter. So let's start with the HTML structure. At the top, we have our main container. This is the slider container, and it's going to hold everything you see on the screen. Inside it, we have a content section. Think of this as the active slide. Everything visible changes inside here. Now, the first thing inside the content is a color overlay. This is very important because instead of changing the whole page background, we animate this layer, which gives us that smooth transition effect between slides. Next, we have the product name. You'll notice I split it into two spans, the first word and the second word. This is intentional because later we're going to animate each word independently. So instead of just appearing, they slide in smoothly and feel more dynamic. Then we have the main image, the milkshake image. Right now, it's empty. After that, we have the nutrition panel. This section is made up of multiple nutrition items, and each item has a value and a label. So for example, 20 grams of protein, 13 grams of fiber, and so on. We're going to animate these one by one, so they don't just pop in, but instead appear in a staggered sequence. That small detail makes a huge difference in how professional the UI feels. Make sure to check the class name's spelling. Okay, now let's preview the output. Here, and good, everything, perfect. Resize that. Finish that, and now let's add the nutrition for other food items. Shut up. Let's continue. Repeat the nutritions item content, or rather values, for the 4 food items. We're going to maintain the HTML layout. It matters a lot. done with nutrition labeling. Finally, at the bottom, we have the controls. These are the small dots that let you switch between slides. Each dot has a data index, which we'll use in JavaScript to know exactly which slide to show. And we also give one of them an active class by default, so we know which slide is currently selected. So overall, this HTML is not just structure. It's designed specifically to support smooth animations and transitions. Just remembered, we need to add our first cover image. So I'll copy this link and paste it to my HTML. Good. Now that we have our HTML structure ready, let's bring everything to life using CSS. And this is where things start getting really interesting, because this entire design depends on smooth transitions. So let's link our CSS Now let's create our CSS file named cafe.css. So first, I'm starting with a global reset. I remove default margins and padding and set box sizing to border box just to make layout calculations more predictable. Then for the body, I'm using a system font stack for a clean, modern look. And I center everything using Flexbox. This ensures our slider stays perfectly centered on the screen, no matter the device size. And a padding of 20 pixels. Now let's move to the main container. This is the slider container. I give it a fixed width and height, rounded corners, and most importantly, overflow hidden. That overflow hidden is critical because later when we animate elements like the overlay, we don't want them spilling outside the container. I also add a soft shadow here to give it that floating premium feel. Now, this is where the transition magic really begins. Let's talk about the color overlay. Instead of instantly switching background colors, I position this overlay above the container, starting at negative 100%. So basically, it's hidden above the screen. Width and height at 100%. Then I apply a transition using a cubic Bezier curve. This is very important because instead of a basic ease animation, this gives us a more natural, smooth motion, like what you see in high-end UI animations. Now, when we add the slide down class, we translate it down by 100%. So what happens is the overlay slides down and covers the entire container, creating that smooth color transition effect between slides. This one detail alone makes the UI feel much more advanced. Next, the content section. This is just a flex container that organizes everything vertically and keeps all elements centered and spaced nicely. Now for the product name. I increase the font size, make it bold, and center it. But the key thing here is the word part class. Each word has its own transition. This allows us to animate them separately later on, instead of treating the text as one static block. That's what gives it that smooth, modern text animation feel. So as you can see, the text is bold as styled by the CSS. Now, moving to the image, I set a fixed size and use object fit contain so it scales properly without distortion. Then I apply a transition on opacity. This is important because instead of the image just changing instantly, we can fade it in and out smoothly between slides. Now, let's look at the nutrition panel. This section is styled like a card. White background, rounded corners, some padding and spacing, and a subtle shadow. This creates contrast against the background and makes the information easy to read. Each nutrition item is centered and the values have a transition applied. So when we animate them later, they don't just appear, they ease into view. Then we'll style the nutrition content, or rather this listing here, starting with text align, center, and flex. Then we'll style the nutrition values. Basically, these are the numeric values on top. Here, Finally, the controls at the bottom. These are the navigation dots. Each dot has a transition for scaling and color change. So when a dot becomes active, it grows slightly and becomes fully visible. It's a small interaction, but it adds a lot to the overall user experience. Done with controls, now we move to control dot styling, starting with width and height of 12 pixels and 50% radius, making them perfect circles. Also change of cursor to pointer on hover of each dots. Here are the control dots. For now, they aren't active. Later, it will on JavaScript completion. So overall, this CSS is not just about styling. It's carefully designed to support smooth animations, layered transitions, and a more polished, professional UI. Glad we're done with CSS. Now back to our HTML and start the JavaScript by linking the file here. Create JavaScript file named cafe.js, and back to linking to HTML. All right, now comes the brain of everything the JavaScript. This is where we take all the transitions we designed in CSS and actually control when and how they happen. So first, I define an array called flavors. Each object represents one slide. We have the name, which is split into two words, the background color. You can choose different colors of your choice from the scale, then the image, and the nutrition values. I'll add the image of the first slider, copy that, and paste it here. This structure makes everything dynamic. Instead of hard-coding content in HTML, we can switch entire slides just by changing data. We're going to repeat the structure for the other three food items, noting that we only change the images. Also, we'll add the image for the second slider. Make sure you maintain the array flow. You can choose any food image from your designated files. Now, I set up two important variables. Current index, which keeps track of the active slide and is animating. This second one is very important. It prevents users from clicking too fast and breaking the animation flow. So, if an animation is already running, we simply ignore new actions until it finishes. Next, I grab all the DOM elements we need: the container, overlay, text elements, image, nutrition values, and the control dots. Now let's initialize the slider. In init slider, we take the current flavor and apply its color, text, and image to the UI. This is what sets the first slide when the page loads. Now, this is where things get really interesting. The morphwords function, instead of just replacing text instantly, we animate it. So what happens is the current words start sliding outward. while at the same time, characters begin disappearing. Then once they're gone, we reverse the animation. New characters appear gradually, while the words slide back into place. This creates a smooth morphing effect instead of a basic text swap. And to make it feel natural, we're using easing calculations and request animation frame. That gives us smooth, frame-by-frame animation, instead of relying only on CSS. So this next frame function, create smooth playback and food item switching, Next, we animate the nutrition values. Instead of updating everything at once, we stagger them. Each value fades out, updates, then fades back in. That small delay between each item makes the UI feel much more alive. Now, the main function change slide. This is what runs every time we switch slides. First, we prevent unnecessary actions if we're already on the same slide, or if an animation is still running. Then we activate the overlay, we change its color, and trigger the slide down animation. This creates that smooth transition layer over the entire UI. While the overlay is covering everything, we update the content behind it. We morph the text, update nutrition values, and prepare the new image. Then we fade the image out, update the background color of the container, and slide the overlay back up. Finally, we fade the image back in. And at that point, the new slide is fully visible. All of this is carefully timed using set timeout, so each transition flows into the next one seamlessly. Now we update the navigation dots so the active state always matches the current slide. Then we update the current index. Next, we add auto sliding every 4 seconds. The slider automatically moves to the next item. But again, only if no animation is currently running. Finally, we add click events to each dot so users can manually switch slides. And that's it. We now have a fully animated dynamic slider with layered transitions, smooth timing, and a much more professional feel. And the key takeaway here is this: it's not just about adding animations, it's about controlling timing, sequence, and how elements interact with each other. Let's go back to our HTML and correct the linking of JavaScript using the script tags for efficiency. Close the script tag and done. We're going to use the correct HTML formatting to avoid code breakdown. Press Shift, 1, and Enter. Now place every code on its correct arrangement. Here is the final output and preview. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Keep building, keep innovating, and stay creative.